Carol Lincoln with Achieving the Dream, and you are plugged into a Leader College webinar, our monthly chance to check in with each other and talk about what's been happening in some areas of interest to everybody. Thank you so much for being with us again in the new year. I'm going to ask Mary to introduce herself and to also review the agenda for us today. Mary?
Good morning, everybody. This is Mary Cipollone. As you know by now, I am the graduate intern with Achieving the Dream, speaking to you from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm just going to take a couple minutes to go over our agenda for the day. The first thing we're going to do, as always, is go over how to use the GoToWebinar software. We're going to take 5 minutes to go through Leading by Example and highlight some of the great news from our leader colleges. And our main topic for today is effectively using evaluation data as leaders of the student success movement. And we'll have 25 minutes for a conversation with Rigoberto Rincones Gomez, our former leader of our data coaches and currently the Associate Vice President of Institutional Research, Planning, and Effectiveness at Howard College. And then we'll go through 10 minutes of Achieving the Dream business. Okay, so using the GoToWebinar software. The first thing I wanted to mention is on the past few calls we've had some trouble with the audio of people trying to chime in when they'd like to speak. I spoke with the technicians at GoToWebinar, and I do have a couple suggestions. One is, if you're trying to speak and nobody can hear you, just make sure that you haven't muted your personal phone. Make sure that you've entered the access code and audio pin that you see in the audio box of your control panel. And last case scenario is that you should just hang up and call back in. So they didn't have any great insights about what our issues might be, but hopefully things will continue to get better with our tech issues. Everybody should see on their screen the GoToWebinar control panel, like the one you see on this slide. The first thing I would mention is this little control panel will minimize if you don't touch it for a couple of minutes. So you want to click on this grab tab right here where it's labeled B, and that will reopen your control panel. On this control panel, you can also see the attendee list, and you can see the names of all 33 participants that are on this call today. Beneath the grab tab, you see a little hand icon, and that's where you can go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to speak on the call. So why doesn't everybody go ahead and raise their hand quickly, just so we can see that we all know how to do this. So I think we're all pros by now. Okay, I see a bunch of hands going up. Great. Looks like we're comfortable with that. Okay, and the other thing you should know about is the questions pane, which is down towards the bottom of your control panel. In there you can type questions that will come to me, and then I can read them aloud. So at any point during the presentation, if you have a question about the technology or you want to chime in about the conversation, you can go ahead and use that pane. And then additionally, we will be taking a few polls during the conversation, and those will pop right up on your screen, and you'll be able to click on your answers to submit your feedback during the conversation right on your screen. Okay, that about covers the technology. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. We wanted to do something really great today to comment about some things that have happened at a couple of our colleges. I'm just going to ask Mary real quickly because I'm not seeing the list of people who are signed in. Do we yet have anybody from Valencia or from Southwest Texas on the webinar today?
I do not see them on here yet.
Okay. Well, many of you may already know, but we wanted to take this moment to say a special congratulations to 3 Achieving the Dream colleges, 2 of whom are leader colleges, that were finalists in the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence. I suspect many of you know now about that prize. There are several foundations that include some that support Achieving the Dream, such as Bank of America Charitable Foundation, Lumina Foundation, and 2 others, Joyce and J.P. Morgan Chase Foundations, that put up the resources to make it possible for there to be this unusual and unprecedented recognition award for community college excellence. If you haven't heard already, Valencia, of course, was the one that was the big winner, and they received a $600,000 prize. The Mott College and Southwest Texas Junior College were runners-up. They were in the top 10. They did receive special recognition, and there's been some marvelous publicity about the work that they've done. If either of them had gotten on the call, or if they get on the call later today, what I wanted to ask them was what some of their takeaways were from this experience. We expect that the Aspen folks will be able to run this competition, if not annually, they will be doing it every other year. They're in the process of raising money to be able to do that, and they're in negotiation with their funders about whether it should be an annual or biannual award. But you should all know that this is going to remain out there as these foundations are trying to push attention to community colleges and constantly elevate the work that's been happening at colleges that are having some of the most significant increases in their graduation and student success, persistence, and retention rates. So if they come on, we'll ask them if there were some major takeaways that might help others of you when you think about competing the next time around. But for the time being, let's just say congratulations to some jobs very well done by these outstanding community colleges. So that leads us to today's topic of using evaluation data. We couldn't be more pleased to have Rigo join us today. As Mary said, Rigo was formerly the National Director of Data Coaching for Achieving the Dream, a position he held for over 5 years. And only recently, just around the holiday period, was he leaving us and joined the Broward Community College team. You can see on the screen some of the credentials that Rigo brings to this work. He's been in the community college world for a long time, and he's a very distinguished and accomplished person in the field of evaluation and also in institutional research, planning, and effectiveness. So Rigo was kind enough to accept our invitation to talk to us a little bit today about some of the things he saw when he was a data coach working with several leader colleges in Achieving the Dream, some things that might talk to the issue of how you can use evaluation data to really advance all of the student success work in your institution. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rigo and invite him to chat with us a little bit, and encourage all of you to send questions in or raise your hand if you want to get in the conversation. Rigo is very interested in having this be a conversation, not a speech. So Rigo, would you start us off, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Carol, and Mary, all my colleagues at Achieving the Dream. And hello to everyone in this phone call, particularly to the several data coaches that are listening in. It is my pleasure to be here today. And as part of your work as a college in Achieving the Dream, you all are engaged in a process of institutional improvement to increase student success. A central component to that process is engaging internal and external stakeholders to help develop and implement interventions or changes in programs and services that improve student success. Now, for you to be able to determine whether those interventions do indeed improve student outcomes and what changes and refinements should be made to produce further improvement, colleges need to evaluate their interventions. And to this end, I wrote the guide that is now on the screen for Achieving the Dream, entitled Evaluating Student Success Intervention, Principles and Practices of Student Success. And when I did that, I wanted to keep it very simple and come up with only 5 very simple steps. And as you can see, I am sure you are very familiar with all 5 steps. The first one is you describe the intervention. The second one is you identify the evaluation questions you would like to answer. You complete the evaluation plan, you monitor the execution of the plan, And finally, and very importantly, you learn, you share, and use the results. In that guide, I provide multiple examples and very easy to follow steps for each of these components. And what I would like to do now is to showcase, to speak briefly about 3 quite exemplar institutions. And I am sure that there are many others out there, but for the purpose of today's calls and the time we have available, I will highlight 3 institutions. Broward College, which is my new home here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I will speak about College of the Mainland, with which I used to be a data coach and worked for 5 years, and Brassport College as well. And I have 2 of my colleagues from these institutions here in the call. Now, about Broward College. When it comes to, well, I just jump in. I'm sorry, Mary. Could you please click to see the quotation in that slide? Yes, thank you. When it comes to any college, in fact, what is really important for the use of evaluation results is pretty much that, to get to use them. Even though if they are not good, if they are not showing the expected result, they can be of great value. Sharing evaluation results widely, internally and externally, it is really important to what we are all trying to accomplish, which is to build and sustain a culture of evidence, and more importantly, to increase student success. Now I would like to go into the specific with each of these 3 institutions. Let's start with Broward here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. One of the ways how evaluation results have been used, and not just the evaluation results, the information that is produced is through an annual Student Success Summit that takes place every fall semester, where data is widely shared, as well of the stories behind the student success. And this is done on an ongoing basis, as I said, every fall. We certainly and systematically share, again, student success data with the cabinet, who brings together the president, the 3 campus presidents, and all other senior leaders. We also have an academic excellence steering council and student affairs steering council who meet every month. And again, here we bring and discuss student success data on an ongoing basis. Next, I would like to speak briefly about how College of the Mainland in Texas City has been using evaluation results. They have increased enormously their presence in the college newsletter, Achieving the Dream, not just Achieving the Dream presence, but the data that Achieving the Dream has helped bring up to the table. They produce regular updates to the Board of Trustees on student success indicators. They have a very strong statewide, regional, and national presence in conferences, showing evaluation methodologies as well as how these results have been used. And they also have this figure, which I really like. They have data ambassadors internally. And what they do is that they carry systematic dissemination of student success data to the different campus communities. Finally, they also have a dashboard where they can show the progress on student success data. Similarly to College of the Mainland, we also have Brassport College, another leader college, and they are down in Lake Jackson, Texas. They also have increased the presence in the college newsletter. The student success data is a frequent agenda item during the board meetings. They have a very strong participation at the state, regional, and national conferences. Again, not just showcasing results, but also they talk about evaluation methodology and how the results from the evaluation are being used to improve student outcomes. Now, when you think about all these colleges, what is really important is not just to show the data, but to follow through, okay? And what I mean by following through is to posing different questions, such as, how are you intending to use this data? How frequently? Who is your target audience? How do we know the data and the information is being used. How can we better use this data and information to improve our processes, and more importantly, the success of our students? So these are some questions that every time I have an opportunity to talk to anybody about student success data, I always pose. How are we intending to use the data? Is it being used? In which way? How can we improve it? So at this point, Mary and Carol, I would like to invite anybody, and particularly my colleagues Linda Villanueva and Pam Millsap from Brazosport College and College of the Mainland, respectively, to add any additional comments or any other strategies that I might have missed about how to better use evaluation data and communicate it with others.
I have Pam as her hand raised. Pam, you should be unmuted. Go right ahead. Pam.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Wonderful. Hi, Rigo. Hi, everybody. Hi, Carol. Well, I was thrilled to learn Rigo was going to be on the call today. Good to hear from you, Rigo. And obviously honored to be mentioned in the exalted company of Brazosport and Broward. But certainly the use of data at College of the Mainland has vastly, vastly increased since our joining of Achieving the Dream. And even in corners of the campus where data is kind of a bad word, you know, people are beginning to see its utility because we can connect it with very specific actions. And I think that's the real, you know, outcome of following through, is that people begin to connect the dots, even people who normally don't think about data. They saw that, well, we had this data and we realized we needed to implement an intervention. We did it. Now we have this outcome. And so I think our use of data ambassadors has been to try and get people used to thinking about data, even those that normally really don't. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Pam. And while everybody else is thinking up their questions, I have a poll that I can run here. So we're curious to know, with whom does your college share its evaluation data? You have 5 choices on that screen. You can go ahead and submit your choices. You can select all that apply. Okay, I can see about 20% of you have voted so far. Feedback. I'm going to let it go about 5 more seconds for you to get your votes in. Let us know who you're sharing your data with. All right, let's take a look. So you guys can show us that 85% of you are sharing your data with the college trustees, 93% with the college faculty and staff, 70%, a lower number, with local community partners, and 70% also with colleges and organizations outside the AATD network. And nobody says that they haven't shared their data yet externally. Carol, did you have some comments on that poll?
If I may, Mary.
Go ahead.
Carol, are you there?
No, it looks like Carol's grayed out. Carol, you might need to put your audio code back in. Give it a try. But Rigo, go ahead in the meantime.
Okay, when I see this, I am not surprised, because perhaps people might think they are not sharing their data externally, but they are indeed sharing externally when they post any information related to student success in their website, in their newsletter. You know, people bring this information back home, and we are talking about hundreds of thousands of students, you know, carrying this information with them, and more importantly, the stories behind this information, the success stories. So again, I am not surprised. I do believe that people are sharing all this information externally. So that's the comment I wanted to make, Mary.
Linda would also like to speak. Linda, you should be unmuted. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. My name is Linda Villanueva, and it is indeed a pleasure to be on this call with so many valued colleagues and to indeed speak with Pam Millsap and Rigo, who was a wonderful data facilitator, data coach at Brazos Port College. I also serve as a data coach for 2 Achieving the Dream colleges in Michigan and 2 Achieving the Dream colleges in the Washington State area. So pleasure to be with everyone. The one comment that I wanted to briefly make with regard to Rigo's presentation thus far is that in these economic times and the harsh economic climate that we're experiencing, the importance of evaluation cannot be understated. The use of sharing data with stakeholders, such as we've seen in this poll with our trustee members and college and faculty, has, at Brazosport, for example, led to the scaling up of an important student success intervention, which has been a student success course at our own college. And if we don't share this information, you know, these types of interventions won't be scaled up, and these changes won't be implemented. So it's really important to do that. And in addition, no one else is going to sell our program but ourselves. So we really need to get this data out there, and it's just really crucially important.
This is Carol speaking. I guess that I'm looking at the poll results, and I'm kind of curious as to how people are thinking about sharing data with community partners. Obviously, from the poll, a lot of you are doing that, and then some of you are not. Is that because, what is behind that? Is that because you're not thinking that the community cares or is interested in the evaluation data? Is it because the institution has not yet really felt comfortable doing that? Is there anybody who would be, who's on this call, that would be willing to say, if you were one of the ones that didn't check the box of sharing with community partners, is there anybody who would be willing to speak up and say where you are on that, why you didn't check that box?
I don't see any brave hands raised.
I'm suspecting that it's one of those things where, or at least what we've observed over time, is that many colleges are initially not comfortable releasing the data externally, that there's a sense often that the college wants to first talk internally about it and understand it and get comfortable with it, and have, in a sense, have their messaging straight when they take that data externally. But at the same time, we've seen colleges that have gone external with their data have extremely positive reactions. I remember, is Lou Zelma on the line? I remember Lou Zelma, when she was at South Texas, ended up finding out that once they made that big leap of faith to go work and talk in the community about some of the data, maybe not evaluation data, but some of their outcome data, they were amazed at the more positive reaction they had. Maybe Lou Zelma would like to comment on that if she's on the line.
Lou Zelma, you're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, this is Lou Zelma from South Texas College. Yes, Carol is right. We were one of the original 27 Achieving the Dream colleges, and we did slow down our discussions, you know, with the community in a more public way. We had always been, or for the 10 years prior to that, we had been sharing very privately with the school districts, with whoever the data impacted. But in 2006, we got really courageous and hosted our first Summit on College Readiness. And you're right, Carol, we did really focus on outcome data. And in order to kind of take away some of that, you know, sting away, what we did is we invited the local university and the regional service center, which is who collects all of the data for our school districts for our region, and presented the data that well. that way. In February, next month, we'll be actually hosting our 7th Summit on College Readiness. And since then, we really do this very publicly in different ways. Right before the winter break, we hosted a 2-day retreat with all 9 of our early college high schools plus the middle schools. And so we're beginning to share the data in different ways. We also share it with our economic development corporations. We have had workforce summits. We just find that if you present it in a way that we're all in this together, and I think all the national attention that the President Obama has brought, and that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Lumina, all of the big foundations, I think, have done us a favor in kind of putting college graduation rates and numbers up front and center, because it forces us to very publicly now discuss the data. And it's better for us to present it up front than it is for someone else to misrepresent our data.
I have a couple comments here. One from Chris Johnson at Renton Technical College in Washington State. He says, that sounds about right, Carol. One thing we at Renton Tech do is make the data simple, broad, succinct for the community groups to digest. And Elizabeth Bugagas from Norwalk Community College says, at NCC, we have shared data primarily with our 8 sponsoring school districts through our task force, which is a partnership with the districts. I think to share takes intent and purpose, lots of thought about the attended audience and the overall purpose and goals of sharing. Thank you guys for your comments. And Lydia Tena has her hand raised. Lydia, you should be unmuted. Go right ahead, join the conversation.
Yes, hello everybody. I just wanted to share some of the experiences that we had at El Paso Community College were very similar to what Lucelma was indicating at South Texas. When we did have our community advisory group come together for the very first time, we provided data about what we saw as our incoming students' college readiness level. And it was provided in a very non-threatening fashion, just presenting the data. And in the audience we had representatives, superintendents from all our 12 local school districts. We also had business and industry representatives. We even had the editor of the newspaper, because we wanted to make sure that the information that was going to be discussed at that time was also going to be taken out to the community. And in a way, what happened there was the discussion allowed us then to see what the school districts would also want to do in their area before the students came to us, because our findings, totally based on our data, showed that it did not matter how long a student had been out of school. Even a recent graduate was still coming to us needing a lot of remediation. And that allowed us to start our college readiness initiative at El Paso Community College, which has been one of our most powerful initiatives to allow our students to come to us much more college ready. So those brave conversations can have wonderful results. And that's it for me.
I have another question, Mary, if we don't have any raised hands at this point.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Rigo, when you were talking, I think it might have been about College of the Mainland, you mentioned that one of the things they do is that they have data ambassadors. Was
Yes.
that College of the Mainland?
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about who those data ambassadors are and what they do. If there's someone from College of Mainland, if Pam is still on the call, maybe she could explain that.
Pam, would you like?
Hold on one second, Pam. I'm going to unmute you. Pam, we should be able to hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, we initially came up with that term data ambassadors for the people who serve on our data team, who come from all parts of the campus. And what we did was and I think this is something other schools do too, but our IR office regularly, several times a year, puts out what we call quick facts sheets. And on those one-page sheets are what we kind of consider digestible bits of data. so that people aren't overwhelmed with charts and tables and graphs, but just one simple line graph with some pretty basic data on something very relevant to student success. Like, for example, retention of students who take the student success course versus, the other students in the cohort or whatever. And so we take these quick fact sheets, and the people on the data team are our data ambassadors, and they go out to their areas of the campus and ask for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, or maybe 15, to be on the agenda of their department or program meetings, or whatever other forum might work for them. And they just distribute those sheets, and they have a discussion about it. And even if it's not an intervention that is directly relevant to that department, it kind of gets gets people used to thinking about data and why it's important. Because the people who serve as data ambassadors are able to talk about why did we collect that data, what did we do with it, what decisions were made as a result of it. And because we do quick fact sheets on various topics, generally they are things that people from all corners of the campus do relate to, at least to some extent, and it gets them thinking about what kinds of data would they want to see relevant to things they're more closely involved in. So it's just kind of a way of getting people used to talking about data, understanding data, thinking about data, and how it can inform your decision making, so that it doesn't feel quite so external or foreign. Because for some people on campus, that was just something IR does. It's not something relevant to what we do on a day-to-day basis. And this model has kind of changed the culture, because it gets people to realize that data is relevant to all of us in terms of what we're doing for our students. So hopefully that's an explanation that makes sense.
Thank you, Pam. That sounds like a really smart idea. One of the things we've been thinking about lately is how do you really get more faculty and staff engaged in looking at the data, whether it's the evaluations that you're doing or whether it's the initial data analysis of student outcomes. And many of you are probably aware that some of the evaluation and research that's been done by Community College Research Center for Achieving the Dream has said that Achieving the Dream is doing a pretty good job of getting a small group of faculty and staff used to using data and working with evaluation results, and it tends to be the ones who were on the initial data teams or core teams, or the faculty and staff who maybe were the ones that were responsible for putting in place some of the specific new ATD interventions. But what we've not done as good a job of is getting many, many people across the campus looking at the data, understanding the evaluation results, and then applying that information to their daily work. So it sounds like the data ambassadors might be a real good strategy for trying to get out beyond that smaller circle of the committed folks who got the assignment of being on the Achieving the Dream core or data teams, and helping this stuff permeate across the campus. It sounds like a wonderful idea. I'd love to know if others have been doing similar kinds of things to that.
Carol, I have a comment from Jan Liddon. Jan says, one of the keys in sharing data is to avoid blame, particularly when the data shows some not so good news. And that was something Rigo brought up, is it's okay to share data even if it doesn't give you the results you want. I wonder if Rigo or anyone else has some comments on how to handle the issue of avoiding blame.
Yes, I do. And this relates to a particular case if I might share this, Linda, in College of the Mainland. The results of the data initially indicated that the problem was coming from one particular department, and within the department, 2 particular faculty members. However, the strategy that was used I'm sorry, I said College of the Mainland. I meant to say Brassport College with Linda Villanueva, Brassport. The strategy that we used there was to have a data summit, and we had a faculty from the history department talking about the data openly and honestly, and this was college-wide data. And the reason for doing that is that we didn't want to have a statistician speaking about, data. Somebody from, another department speaking openly and as easily as possible about the data. Anyway, after the session, there were table conversations where several data sets were distributed. Follow-up questions were built to address these data issues. And interestingly enough, after the sessions and follow-up conversation with faculty and staff, what the college found out is that the placement test was the main reason why we had this failure, because the problem was not only happening in that department where everybody was thinking, okay, we have an issue with these two faculty members. No, it was an issue with the cut scores of the placement test that was used. And as a result of that, one of the interventions that the college came up with was about an evaluation of the placement test. So going back to the initial question, what initially looked like a very bad symptom or bad news about data, and it was attached to two people, it was disattached later on after we openly discussed and we drilled down into the specific of the data. So that's my comment. I don't know if Linda would like to add something else in that regard.
I also have a comment from Bill Heineman on here. He says, it's not just blame, but faculty feeling overwhelmed with the many different types of evaluation and assessment data that we bombard them with. At a professional development day this March, we're going to ask faculty to look for the linkages and patterns in different sets of results to give them some practice at playing with the data and developing an understanding of its meaning. We'll see how it goes and report back. And Lydia Tana says, avoiding blame when sharing the data publicly has a lot to do with the tone that is established from the onset of the conversation. This helps the conversation to be focused on the data itself without blame being cast on any entity. And with respect to working with faculty, Lydia also said that El Paso Community College established a faculty evaluation data team that continuously reviews data and requests data to be shared with disciplines for their use in overseeing how their students and programs are doing. And one more comment from Linda. Linda Villanueva says, this was an excellent way of creating the perception, with response to what Rigo was about, this was an excellent way of creating the perception among our faculty that all faculty, regardless of discipline, were developmental educators.
Mary, if I have 2 minutes, I would like to make a comment.
Yes, and then
okay.
We're going to wrap up this conversation after that.
Okay. This is happening here at Broward and my new institution. And one thing that I would like to advise people is that when you are talking about data, any kind of data, and evaluative data, when you're talking about evaluation results, please make sure that any tool that you might use shall not drive the process, because the tool is just that, a tool. So this creates confusion, and people sometimes are afraid of, the evaluation results, obviously. So what I would recommend in this case is that you start sharing the big picture. You start by sharing the evaluation framework, and after that, you explain what you are trying to accomplish with that evaluation framework, specifically which would be the benefits to the students, to the faculty, staff, and administrators. And then lately, you will talk about the tool that will help you arrive to, to handle the process and arrive to results. So my advice is don't put the tool in front. The tool is just a mean towards the end. The end is student success. And again, just show the big picture up front with the benefits in it. That's it.
Great. I have one final comment, Carol, and then I'm going to pass it back over to you. Fred Lillibridge from New Mexico State University, Doña Ana, says, one unintended consequence for free flow of data is that it will cause workload issues for the IR folks. That makes prioritizing data needs very critical.
Well, that's probably a good note to end on. It's a good thing to be aware of. And I know all of you who are in IR departments, including Fred, have felt the pressure over the years of all the things that have happened. What we've seen from the evaluation is that as people get more and more into Achieving the Dream work, you find more and more questions being raised, more requests of the IR department to help with various studies and analyses. So it's not surprising that IR folks are feeling the need to prioritize these requests, and yet at the same time it's thrilling to find that we're changing the culture so that people are wanting to get this kind of information. Let me switch to a couple of business items and a couple of final polls that Mary wants to conduct. So first of all, I just wanted to remind everybody again that the deadline for registering for the DREAM Institute is coming up on us. I believe everybody's been asked to register by January 20th. And the last time we looked at the results, a lot of colleges had not yet put in their registration. So please do get that in and make sure that you have your spot saved, especially in the hotel space where you want to be close to the meetings. I wanted to remind you that at DREAM we're going to have sessions for your presidents. So again, we're hoping that you will encourage them to come. The leader college presidents in particular are going to have a 2-hour session on Wednesday morning. We're going to be doing focus groups with those presidents, trying to get from them their thoughts about what the field should be doing to better prepare and develop community college leadership. And then there's also going to be a President's Roundtable for all presidents and CEOs at ATD institutions later that afternoon, and that one is going to be about trustee engagement. Second thing I wanted to just mention to you is that we've found out that there's been a number of president transitions happening in this mid-year period, and so Mary is comprising a list of those president transitions. You may recall that the leader college presidents had agreed early on that they would like to welcome new presidents who come on board at ATD institutions. So if your president or you would be interested in sending a note or placing a phone call to some of these presidents who are joining the ATD institutions mid-year, Mary can help connect you to who the new presidents are and also just give you the contact information. Lydia, I feel really sorry for you. I understand you're going to be losing Dennis Brown, who's accepted the presidency of Lee College, and you lost Richard Rhodes this year, so I'm sure El Paso is really feeling the pain of having some of your leaders move on to other institutions. But fortunately for us, we know they're going to other ATD institutions, and we aren't really losing their leadership in Achieving the Dream. The other announcement that we want to make is that we've got to deal with some scheduling challenges for this call, and so in March we have some conflicts with the DREAM Institute. So Mary is going to ask you what your preference is for several possible dates that we could schedule the March call. And if you could do that poll now, Mary.
Yes. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can go ahead and just select all the dates that work for you. That way we know. I know everybody has different spring breaks, and we want to make sure to get as many people as possible. Almost half of you have responded. And if you're coming in as a panelist, I see a couple people letting me know that they can't use the poll. If you're coming in as a panelist or an organizer, I don't think you're able to answer the poll questions. Okay, I'm just going to give it about 10 more seconds so everyone can check their calendars quickly. I have almost everybody. Okay, let's take a look. So it's relatively close, but it looks like Thursday, March 22nd at 12:30 p.m. is the best for the largest group of people. So we're going to go ahead and schedule the March call for Thursday, March 22nd at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we appreciate your flexibility with the time and date for March's call.
Thank you. We will try not to make these kinds of changes very often because we think it's easier to stay on a predictable calendar, but obviously we want you to be part of DREAM, so this will be our procedure for March. Let's see. We have, on this slide, what do we have? Thursday, February 2nd is our next Leader College call. And RC is coming out with a new report. It's a case study of peer learning programs that are in place in 2 colleges in Massachusetts. So they have they've agreed that they would be willing to share some of the highlights of that evaluation, and a couple of the college representatives, I think, are also going to be able to join that call. Because this is a national report that MDRC has done, we would like to open the February Leader College call up to any team leader in an ATD institution that is particularly interested in this topic about peer learning. You know, this is when you're using students for supplemental instruction, or if you're using students to be mentors or coaches, or any of those kinds of ways that you're involving the students in helping other students learn. That's the topic for February, and just this one time we'd like to open it up to any team leader who might be interested in this particular strategy.
And I'm just going to take a quick evaluation poll to get your feedback on how you perceive this call. Again, you can select as many options as fit your needs. Okay, good. I have responses from almost half of you. Give us about 10 more seconds to get as much feedback as possible. I love this polling. It's so cool how you guys can just tell me what you're thinking right online. All right, here we go. So you can see the feedback there. It seems like most people were relatively happy with the call. The majority found the call useful and informative, will continue to participate, enjoy the webinar format despite the occasional difficulties, and enjoyed Rigo's presentation. The 3% who said the call did not meet their expectations, again, I would love it if you would send me an email with any suggestions you have. As always, we want to make this time useful and productive for you. So thanks for your feedback.
Well, thank you, Mary, and special thank you to Rigo and to his colleagues, Linda and Pam, who shared what they were doing. Appreciate you being willing to share all of that today, and thank you, everyone, for joining this call and participating so well as you did today. We look forward to talking to you again on February 2nd, and, of course, seeing you in Dallas on February 28th to March 2nd. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.